Check out these homemade chicken nuggets. Crispy on the outside, tender and juicy on the inside, and oh so delicious. Whew! Come along for the ride. Hey now, yes, I realize chicken nuggets are relatively inexpensive to purchase frozen from the grocery store, and if that's what you're into, absolutely do that. In fact, we do that most of the time around here. However, if you want to be able to control the flavors, the process, and all of the ingredients that are actually in your chicken nuggets, then perhaps this recipe is for you. You can play around with several of the factors here, not only in the seasoning, but also whether you go with like entirely chicken breast, entirely chicken thigh, or like I'm going to, sort of a 50-50 blend of those two meats. However, the main recipe stays the same. Play around with it as you will. Our first step here is just to cube up this meat. You can see I do have this 50-50 ratio here of chicken breast to chicken thigh. I'm just going to start cutting up into roughly 1-inch cubes. Now the whole recipe here is going to be in the video description, and the recipe is going to be in percentages because that's going to allow you to scale this for any size of recipe and quantity of meat that you want. I'm also going to be doing it in metric because math, it plays way nicer with the percentages. So I'll have everything in there as well as the explanation of how to make those percentages work. It's simply taking your meat weight in grams and multiplying it by the percentage for each ingredient, and that will give you what you need. Then when it comes to the thighs, I'm just going to go through them. These were boneless, skinless thighs. Make sure that there isn't accidentally, oh, just like that, little chunk of bone in there. Obviously that wouldn't be fun to have, but I'll just cut these up here as well and get everything into a stainless or non-reactive bowl. So this is all the waste that I wound up with here, just cutting out any little bone niblets that I found, as well as sort of a harder piece of tendon. Now we do want to salt our meat, and what I have here is 1.1% of that meat weight, which in this case is 20.6 grams. I'm just going to sprinkle this kosher salt onto here. We're going to mix it in by hand. This is going to help this meat just get a little bit more tender for the finished product here, as well as just getting that salt into the meat before we turn this into a beautiful, beautiful looking paste. With the salt mixed in, we're going to get this covered up and into the fridge anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. I let our chicken sit for 2 hours here, and we are ready to add all of the other ingredients for the actual nuggets themselves. We have chicken bouillon powder here. This is 0.7%, which in the case of the amount of meat I have here was basically 2 teaspoons worth, or 3 little packages of this chicken oxo powder here. I'm going to sprinkle this in. This is going to give us lots of chicken flavor, as well as actually a little bit of that MSG, which is going to make this so incredibly delicious. 0.5% garlic powder, which again was actually about 2 teaspoons for this recipe. 0.27% of onion powder, which once again, 2 teaspoons worth. 0.4% of white pepper. I love this as an ingredient. We're going to get this in here. Again, this was actually 2 teaspoons. And now we have an optional ingredient. I'm going to be adding it, and it's sodium phosphate here. This is going to help our chicken retain moisture as it cooks. This is just used to help retain water. It does something with the proteins and makes them expand the spaces between and stuff like that so that the meat can actually absorb more water and hang on to it while it cooks. If you are going to be adding that, it's 0.4% of the sodium phosphate, and that's going into distilled water, and it's 8.4%. So just to give you an idea here, that was 157 milliliters of this water. You want to have it fully dissolved in here before you try to add it to the meat. And that is all that is going into our actual nuggets here. So I'm just going to pour in that water with the sodium phosphate. I'm going to give it a good mixing here by hand, and then we need to get this all ground up into a paste. All right, here we are. We're not actually going to let this sit around and marinate or anything. This is already nice and cold because it came out of the fridge, and we are ready to simply get it into our food processor. And now I'm going to add this here. We're going to do this in batches just so that we don't accidentally overfill the food processor. By adding the ingredients to the bowl, we're able to get a little bit better of distribution considering we can't process this all in one single batch. Now, as this is processing, you probably will need to open up your food processor and just make sure that nothing is sticking up too high and not actually getting worked. I'll just turn that off here. Now, this is sort of a funny situation in that this actually smells amazing, but looks terrible. But that is totally okay because the finished product here is going to be fantastic. At this point, you can see it's just a really nice paste. So we're going to get this out. I'll throw it into a different bowl and we will just get all of it whipped up here. That took me 4 batches just to get this all whipped up here. And I'm just giving it a really quick mixing with my hand here just to ensure that there's uniformity with any of the seasonings between those 4 batches. There we are. All right, and we are now ready to actually form our nuggets. In order to make our nuggets, we need our coating for them. So I'm going to start to mix that up here now. Now I am going with a combination of all-purpose and rice flour. You could go straight all-purpose or straight rice flour if you want. I like a combination of the two, just a 50-50 split. So for this, it's 8% of the all-purpose flour and 8% of the rice flour. Again, that's still going by the meat weight. And that was essentially 1 cup of each of those flours. 3.6% of cornstarch, 0.7% of that chicken bouillon powder again. That actually worked out to 3 more packages. 0.35% of baking powder. That was 2 teaspoons essentially. 0.85% of white pepper. 0.7% of paprika. And now we just mix this together. We are ready to coat those nuggets. So with this coating prepared, we are ready to actually make our nuggets. Now the trick is to take roughly a tablespoon of the chicken, and we're just making a little ball. We're flattening it into these little nuggets. We're going to have a good coating on here, and then we're going to get them onto these parchment sheets so that they can firm up. With all of these nuggets formed and coated, we're now going to pop these into the freezer just to chill them down. They'll be a lot easier to work with, and then we can get them battered and fried up. With our nuggets frozen and ready to go, we just need to make up this batter. So I'm going to take the flour mixture here that we have reserved, and we're going to be adding some water to it. I'm just going to whisk it in. And so this was about 20% of that meat weight, again, with the calculation. What we're looking for here is just like a really loose pancake batter sort of texture. I have my frozen nuggets here, and because I had them on the parchment paper, they are just coming off really nice and easily here. Having them frozen is going to do a few different things here for us. First of all, they're obviously going to hold their shape while we batter them, let them dry, and then cook them. It's also going to make it easier to not overcook the actual chicken while we're waiting for that outer coating to have that nice golden color that we're looking for. So we're just going to take them, we're going to dip them into the batter, drip off the excess, and then I'm going to set them on this wire rack here so that any other extra can just drip off until we're ready to fry. Now there are a few different ways you could cook this here. You could oven bake them or pan fry them in oil. However, I'm going to be deep frying them simply because I have this deep fryer and it's going to work really well. So I've got this set at 375 degrees right now. We really want to fry at about 350. However, because these nuggets are quite cold, they are going to drop that temperature here right away. So I'm just going to take our nuggets. I'm just going to get these in. We go frying away. So now, after frying these for 5 minutes, we've crossed that 165 degree Fahrenheit temperature range, which is what you need to do. It doesn't really matter how you're choosing to cook these. As long as you get them up above 165, you're going to be good. And I'm just going to get them into a pan here with some paper towel in it, just to allow any extra oil that's on it just to come off. Here we are with all of those nuggets all fried up. One other advantage to letting them just sort of hang out here for several minutes afterwards is they're oh so hot when they come out of the fryer. So this will give them a chance just to cool down a little bit so that you won't burn your delicate little tongue when you go to eat them. Speaking of eating, we've got to do this. Even on their own, with no dipping sauce, these are incredibly flavorful. You've got some of the white pepper, the paprika, the garlic, all of that stuff going on here. Insanely delicious. They're crispy on the outside, they're juicy and tender on the inside. And check out that texture there, nicely held together. That dredging and then freezing process, giving them that batter and then getting them into the fryer right away works incredibly well. The texture of that coating on the outside is very reminiscent of some of the best chicken nuggets that are out there, but you know exactly everything that's in it, so you can feel a little bit better about eating them. So, fun little project. Obviously, more work than going out and just buying some frozen nuggets or swinging through some sort of a fast food restaurant or something like that. However, they're insanely delicious, better for you, and they're a huge hit around here. So, give them a whirl. If you do, let me know how they turn out for you. And until next time, I guess keep your nuggets at 11.